What's up, guys? It's John Dominique, the soul proponent. Today, I want to talk a little bit about how the soul forces us to rethink, to reformulate our beliefs, how it prompts us to reorganize our ideas about life, about God. I'm going to do this by talking about 3 different examples of how the soul forces us to rethink our ideas. The first example I want to talk about is the hardening of the heart. If you notice, especially in traditional Christianity, hardening of the heart is thought of as something good. Supposedly it gives us strength, it gives us hope to endure. We're hanging on to faith, we're hardening our hearts against the possibility that there is no God, or against the possibility of evil in our lives, against the possibility of having to let go of our beliefs. So what has to happen is that our heart has to contract, it has to restrict, it has to defend. That hardening, that restricting, that defending in the path of the soul is actually a barrier. At first it's a good thing, because wanting to be a Christian, hanging on to our ideas of being a Christian, hanging on to our self-image of being a good person, being someone who wants to go to heaven, hanging on to our idea of what we want to have in our lives, that's what that restriction represents, because we're actually defending against that not happening, not being a Christian, or being someone considered being, looked down upon as evil, etc., etc. So the heart constricts, it retracts, and it defends against all types of possibilities. So, in a way, this is a good thing if you're coming from the traditional viewpoint of Christianity. But on the path to the soul, it's the reverse. So the soul is going to make us rethink about this. We have to reformulate our ideas, reformulate our beliefs, because that restricting, that hardening of the heart is actually a defense against what's true, against the truth of reality. The truth of reality is the truth of the unknown, the truth of things constantly changing, of us not knowing the answers, of us facing the emptiness that we feel inside when we let go of our self-image of being a Christian, being a Catholic, etc., etc. So the hardening of the heart is one example of how we have to actually rethink our ideas of what we believe about God, because we have to see the other side of the coin. The other side of the coin of hardening our heart is to let go, to be free, to be vulnerable, to allow. These are attributes of the soul. These are qualities that are necessary on the path to the soul. But if we're restricting our heart and going against vulnerability and allowing, then it's acting as a barrier on the path to the soul. So we have to rethink and reformulate and see how the soul actually flips everything upside down, inside out, and backwards. Another example I want to talk about is when it comes to judgment. Judgment is seen in the traditional viewpoint of Christianity, the conventional way, as something that's necessary. And yet it's necessary for our practical lives, but the thing is, we don't know when to quit judging. So in the story of the Garden of Eden, we think that the first bite of the forbidden fruit is what actually separated humanity and condemned humanity. But in the soul, it's the last bite, not the first bite. So what I mean by this is that the last bite, when we're judging, is, for example, when we come to the emptiness on the path to the soul, there's an emptiness that we have to face. There's a blackness, a void, an emptiness, an abyss. We tend to run away from that because unconsciously we think it's bad. We think it's going to annihilate us. We think it's something to be avoided at all costs. So we're biting the forbidden fruit of judgment because we don't know when to quit. So that last judgment, not the first judgment, is the one that really does us in. So, in the story of Adam and Eve, we think it's that first bite that Adam and Eve did that damn the rest of humanity through all the rest of the generations. That's one way to see it. But the other way to see it on the other side of the coin is that it's the last judgment. It's our judgment. It's our own judgment against being vulnerable and open to nakedness, to openness, to that emptiness that's on the inside of us, because we're avoiding it and we keep judging it because we don't know when to quit. We can bite that forbidden fruit once or twice. You know, in our practical lives, we need to know when to stop. You know, we need to be able to judge, to discern what's good and what's bad, but we don't know when to stop doing that. And that last judgment is what really gets us, because we don't even know that we're doing it. It's very unconscious. So when you get to that emptiness, if you keep judging, that's the last judgment that I'm talking about. Judging that emptiness as bad is something to be avoided, when the truth is it's the opposite. It's something to go deeper into. The third example I want to talk about how the soul flips everything upside down and makes us formulate and rethink our ideas, is evidence. The idea that we need evidence for God. And I'll talk about this a lot because there's a lot of atheists I run into, and atheists are always talking about, I need evidence for God, I need evidence, blah, blah, blah. And I'm telling them, look, it's the other way around. You can't get the evidence. Trying to get the evidence is going to take you further away from the evidence. What we need to do is allow the evidence to get us. Okay, this is a whole different way of thinking. It's a reformulation, a whole 360, 180 degree, upside down, backwards, inside out thinking. This is the soul is going to reformulate and force us to rethink our ideas. So, you know, when we think we need evidence for God, the truth is, in order to get the evidence, we need to let go of the need to have evidence, let go of the need to try to get salvation, the need to get to heaven, the need. Okay, all these needs, as soon as you try to reach and grab for anything, you're going to be out of the state of the soul. The state of the soul is already there. So it's a matter of seeing what's in the way, of uncovering, reversing what's in the way, uncovering the blocks, going deeply into the barriers and seeing the falseness of these barriers to see what's really true. And the way we do that is by pretty much erasing the personality. In the end, that's what's going to end up happening. So we reverse engineer the personality and we see what's left. So, you know, the soul makes us reorganize, rethink our ideas about what's true, about this need for evidence, especially on the path to the soul. It's a matter of letting go of the need of evidence, okay? It's a matter of allowing the evidence to get us. This is not an easy lesson. It's not easy to digest any of these ideas I talked about, but basically the soul is a reformulation, a rethinking of everything. So I talked about 3 examples of how the soul forces us to reorganize and rethink our ideas. The first is the hardening of the heart. The second is on the path of judgment. And the third is this need for evidence. So there you have it, guys. The soul is very, very counterintuitive is the word I want to use, to the personality. And these are 3 ways that I'm talking about, which the soul forces us to rethink our ideas about God, our ideas about Christianity, our ideas about faith, and brings us a few steps closer to the truth. John Dominique, the Soul Proponent. Peace.